Choosing your niche is probably the most difficult decision you have to make as a beginner agency owner. And it's often the decision that determines whether you find success with your agency or not. As Warren Buffett says, it doesn't matter how hard you row, it matters what boat you are in. Because it doesn't matter how hard you work on your business. If you are trying to sell newspapers in a digital economy, failure is almost guaranteed. Similarly, if you don't choose the correct market, you are going to fail because there are niche markets that are declining and simply can't afford your services. On the other hand, there are niche markets that are booming, offering opportunities to ride the bullish trend. So in today's video, I'm gonna give you the 5 key factors that you need to pay attention to when choosing a niche and really go ahead and break them down for you. Second, I'm gonna show you how to find blue ocean niches and differentiate yourself to stand out in saturated markets. And thirdly, I'm gonna give you the 5 most profitable beginner-friendly industries of 2024 and break down how you're able to take advantage of them with your agency. And finally, along with the presentation that I have off to my side here, and by the way, today's video notes and all of the visuals I've put together to really drill home my point, I'm gonna leave a link to all of those below this video so you can just go ahead and save those as some useful resources for yourself. So I'm gonna show you how to run through the decision-making process on how to actually choose the best niche for your specific scenario. So that way you ensure that you're not only rowing hard, but you're also rowing in the right boat for your current stage. And ultimately, you wanna have all the odds in your favor and set yourself up for success. And today's video is gonna show you how to do that. So, the biggest mistake I see most beginner agency owners make when selecting a niche is just following the crowd. They see a whole bunch of agency owners flocking towards a particular niche and they follow suit. Now, I see this most commonly when it comes to real estate, solar installation, med spas, and I'm sure you've even thought about going into one of those niches yourself. But the truth is, most of the time, they just pick any random niche without ever taking the time to evaluate it on a fundamental level. Now, your choice may be viable and you could make tons of money with it. However, some niches will allow you to make hundreds of thousands a month, but it's gonna be so much harder as a beginner. And the others are gonna allow you to make a good, comfortable 6 figures a year while being realistically attainable for beginners in the agency space. Now, making this mistake is kind of like trying to play a new video game in the hardest setting instead of starting on easy mode, then moving to intermediate and moving your way up. So people end up investing so much time into a niche that is quite literally setting you up for failure, which ends up with you getting frustrated and giving up, and then moving on to the next niche. And you just end up continuously going through this cycle, hopping from one niche to the next without ever actually finding any success until one day you give up entirely. But let me ask you this. What if you decided to actually evaluate how likely you are to succeed in the niche that you choose before ever investing months working into it? So that way you can choose a niche that's both profitable and beginner friendly. Well, that's what I want to do here today. Now, there are 5 key factors you need when it comes to evaluating the most profitable beginner-friendly niches. And that's revenue, profit margins, product ticket, total addressable market, or TAM, and then saturation. Now, revenue is important because if you pick a niche where clients usually have high revenue numbers, you're going to make more money because obviously they have the resources to pay you well. However, if you pick a niche where clients can barely scrape by, you're going to struggle to charge high ticket prices as they lack the resources to pay you. And by the way, from personal experience, the clients that pay the least amount of money are usually the ones that are the biggest headache to work with. Funnily enough, usually the lower the price, the higher the expectations. They don't really understand the value of exchange, which essentially means what they pay for in monetary value will be equally or exponentially returned back to them in the form of our services. So you might as well just go for the high paying ones. Like I always say, solve rich people problems because they pay better. Now let's put a number to it. I would not suggest working with any business that makes less than $10,000 a month because when a business surpasses that level, that's usually when they have the resources to reinvest into agency services. Next, let's discuss profit margin because some businesses do make a lot of money when talking about revenue, but when you look at their margins, well, that tells a very different story. Ideally, you want to work with businesses that have 20 to 40% plus profit margins. Anything less than that, and you're going to run into the same problem as businesses with low revenue because they lack the resources to pay you. Now, a few examples of classic low profit margin businesses are clothing stores, electronics stores, restaurants and cafes, and retail stores. These are businesses that usually don't have a lot of spare cash lying around, which makes them a bad fit for your services, and an even worse fit if you're trying to make a good profit from servicing them, which is why you want to work with businesses that have a decent amount of cash to throw around. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the third parameter, which is product ticket. Now, this is the average price that a customer pays per transaction. And ideally, you want to be working with businesses that have a product ticket higher than $1,000. And the reason I say this is because with only a handful of sales, they are already profitable on your service. And let me give you a very simple example. Let's say you help accountants to get more clients, and the way that you do that is through whatever service that you deliver to achieve that. Now, let's say that you're charging them $2,000 a month and their average client is worth $1,000 a month to them. If you bring them 5 clients a month, equating to $5,000, well, then they're already making at the very least a 2x return on their investment after expenses. And trust me, getting them 5 new clients a month as an accounting firm is a very simple job to execute on from the service delivery perspective. Now, let's imagine on the other hand that you were working with a convenience store and their average spend per customer is $5. To get them the same return on investment, you'd probably have to bring them anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 customers per month, considering that they have low margins. And that, my friend, is an extremely difficult job to do. Now, the fourth key factor is the total addressable market, or the TAM. And by the way, it's also commonly referred to as a total available market, so pick whichever one you want. Now, this is basically the overall revenue opportunity that is available for a product or service if 100% of the market share is achieved. Or to make this less business degree from university, to put it in simple terms, the total amount of businesses in a particular market. So when picking a niche, you want to make sure that you're not choosing one with a low ceiling for growth, but instead you want to pick a niche that has a market size of no smaller than 15,000 businesses. So that way you're not limiting yourself and you do not eventually run out of businesses to serve. Now, the way that you do that is you Google your niche's total market size and it's going to give you the total amount of businesses inside of that market. And you can also filter your searches by country to see the different market sizes in different economies. Now, the difference is, if you picked a niche where there are only 100 businesses and you sign 10 clients, that is 10% of the total addressable market, which is a very large chunk of the market and highly unrealistic. Secondly, if you want to pay attention to whether the market is growing or declining, it doesn't make sense to go into a market that is rapidly declining because it's going to affect the longevity of your agency. For example, starting an agency that helps newspaper print companies get more leads is inevitably going to fail because newspaper print companies are a declining market in this modern digital era. Now, the fifth key factor is saturation. And saturation occurs when multiple businesses in the same industry or niche serve a similar purpose. And this is exactly what I was referring to earlier. The biggest mistake that agency owners make is crowd surfing niches and doing what everyone else is doing. However, the truth is, saturation is not always a con. And to be honest, it has its advantages, which I'm going to touch on in just a second. But one important tip to note is it's best not to follow the hype. And if you notice that everyone is going for a particular niche, that's probably not a good thing, because this niche is going to be flooded with thousands of agency owners offering the same services as you, thus making your life very difficult. And this is why in a saturated market, the best thing you can do is to differentiate yourself and just slightly stand out. So how do you stand out? Well, as I said earlier, saturation isn't always a con, and it actually has its advantages. Firstly, saturation proves that the particular niche has proof of concept and that the customer's pain points have already been validated. At the end of the day, you definitely don't want to go into a new market or a new niche and try to invent the wheel. So really ask yourself when picking a niche, have other agency owners found success in this niche? And were they able to provide good results for their clients in that niche? This way, you're not going to be running blindfolded, and you know that if others can find success in this market, so can you. Now, secondly, saturation allows you to differentiate yourself so that way you can stand out like a red boat in a blue ocean. And there are mainly two ways to differentiate yourself. First, by making your offer sound unique and compelling from the rest. And secondly, by sub-niching. You see, the more specific your offer is for a particular sub-niche, the higher your market penetration is going to be and the more money that you're going to be able to generate. So the best way to help you find sub-niches is by understanding the following concept. You have industries, you have verticals within industries, and then you have sectors within verticals. And in order to find a profitable niche, you need to sub-niche down to sectors. And I'll give you an example here. Let's say the industry is construction, the vertical is home improvement, and then the sector is pool installation businesses. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because I would be doing you a disservice if I were just to name 5 niches that I see as the most profitable. And listen, there's many YouTube videos out there that are going to give you the 5 most profitable niches, and they're very surface level. The truth is, any niche can be wildly profitable, provided that they adhere to the 5 key factors that I mentioned earlier in the video. So instead, I would just like to give you the top 5 industries I see as the most profitable in 2024. And then I want to challenge you to think critically about making your own choice, to evaluate the choices you have in mind based on metrics and fact, like a real business owner. And use everything that we've learned in this video. Deduce what niches you are most likely to succeed in and which ones you are not. So let's do this together. Here are the top 5 profitable industries for 2024. Construction, health and beauty, real estate, professional services, and e-commerce. Now, as you move down this tier list, typically there's more upside or profit to be had, but also a more sophisticated client. So don't let that tempt you to go for hard niches. Start with an easy niche, and then you can always ascend to one of the harder niches when you have some skin in the game. Don't dive into the deep end before you learn how to swim. So now let's use the metrics previously mentioned to break down these 5 industries. So I'm just gonna go ahead and look at the presentation that I prepared, and I'm just gonna go ahead and talk through it. So here you can see pool installation, cosmetic surgery, luxury realtor, law firms, and online courses. And this is made up of not only just the industry, but also the vertical and the sector. And you can see right here what you can expect from pool installation companies, anywhere from 50 to 150,000 a month in revenue with 20 to 40% profit margins. Their product ticket is anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000. The TAM on this is over 15,000, and that's just in the US market. Here you can see the saturation is on the higher end because you've got less sophisticated clients. Then we have cosmetic surgery. Now you can see their revenue per month is $25,000 up to $42,000 a month. And this is all with data online. Their profit margins are anywhere between 50 to 80%. Product ticket is $2,000 to $10,000. Basically per service that they offer, the TAM is over 30,000, and they are a moderately sophisticated client, as in like their marketing knowledge. That's what I mean by sophisticated. By the way, when I say sophisticated, I don't mean like they're dumb client or smart client. I mean sophisticated as in their understanding of like, if they had to do what you're doing as an agency, how well could they actually pull off your agency service? And then you have luxury realtor. Their revenue per month, it ranges anywhere from 12,000 to 30,000. Of course, you have realtors below that are struggling, but you know, we're not targeting those. Profit margin, they have 3% of transaction. Their product ticket is anywhere from 12,000 to 30,000, and that's based on the sale of a $1 million home. The TAM is massive. There are tons of realtors. And once again, in terms of marketing, they are a moderately sophisticated client. Then we have law firms. Now, law firms generate anywhere from $300,000 all the way up to $100,000 plus. To be honest, you know, some even generate hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Their profit margins are anywhere from 30 to 35%. I mean, at the end of the day, they're basically just an agency. Their product ticket can range anywhere from $100 to $2,000 per hour. The TAM is $425,000. And once again, they are a sophisticated client, but not always a marketing sophisticated client. Then we have online courses. Now, their revenue can range anywhere from $5,000 a month to $1 million a month. Their profit margins are anywhere from 20 to 60%, depending on how much they're spending on ads. Product ticket is usually anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 a month, but sometimes it could be as low as, $500 a month, $300 a month. The total addressable market is 15,000 plus. It's not a massive market of people who sell online courses and are actually, qualified clients. And then they are highly marketing sophisticated, as in this is not an easy niche at all. Now, as I said before, it's important to remember that each industry has many different verticals and sectors within it. So once again, let's go back to our previous examples and run through this. So when it comes to construction, as I said, based off of a bit of research, pool installation businesses average revenue ranges between 50 to 150,000 per month. Their profit is between 20 to 40% of this total revenue, which means that on the low end, it's $10,000 a month profit, all the way up to $60,000 per month. Their average ticket price per project is anywhere from 15 to 35,000, depending on the size of the project. And there's a total addressable market of around 15,000 businesses, and that's just in the US alone. So hypothetically, if you're charging them $5,000 a month and you manage to get them 1 to 2 new clients per month, they're going to be making a 7 to 14x return on the amount that they're paying you. So let's go ahead and run through with some of the other industries. So we have cosmetic surgeons. Now, cosmetic surgeons make on average between $300,000 to $500,000 per year, obviously depending on their experience. So that equates between $25,000 to $42,000 per month. Profit margins are really healthy, ranging anywhere from 50% all the way up to 80%. Their average ticket price can range anywhere from $2,400 for lip enhancement all the way up to $9,500 for facelift. And by the way, shout out to some of my team who I sent off to do research for these specific niches. So that way I didn't have to spend all day looking at how much facelifts and BBLs costed. Now there's a combined total addressable market of around 30,000 between different countries. Then we have luxury residential realtors. Now luxury realtors typically make about 3% earned commission on transaction. Now let's say they sell $1 million home. 3% of that is $30,000. But obviously, if they work for a broker, then they typically only take 60% of that, meaning that for one sale of $1 million house, the realtor would make anywhere from $12,000 to $30,000. Now, the total addressable market for realtors is massive, with 1.5 million in the United States of America. Now, moving on to law firms, let's look at some of their statistics. Now, depending on the size and experience of the lawyer or law firm, revenue can range anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000, and to be honest, even far past that. A good margin for a law firm typically falls between 30 and 35%, and law firms' pricing can range anywhere from $100 to $2,000 per hour, and to be honest, sometimes even more than that. And there are currently 425,285 law firm businesses in the United States of America as of 2023. Now, moving on, we have online courses. Now, online courses typically have control over the price of the products, so they're able to charge higher ticket prices if they want. As you know, there's online programs out there that are $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. I know this is hard for some people to believe, but there are online courses out there for $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, $100,000. Now, the revenue will really depend on a lot of factors. However, these businesses are more likely to have their marketing down to a T, as this brings them 80% of their results. So depending on how sophisticated the business owner is, revenue can range anywhere from $5,000 a month all the way up to $1 million a month. Now, these businesses also typically manage big teams that's going to take a hit on their margins. So usually their margins sit anywhere from 20 to 60%. So as you can see, there is an abundance of profitable niches out there waiting for you to take advantage of. And to be honest, the amount of options you have might even seem a little overwhelming. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave you with this. The next best question to ask yourself is, do you understand the mechanics of this niche? Now, let me tell you what I mean by this question, and also why it's so important by telling you the story of how I picked my accountant. When I was looking for my first ever accountant, this is many, many years ago at this point, I had a ton of different candidates. Now, they were all good accountants, but when I explained the mechanics of what I did, and specifically the payment processors that I used inside of my marketing agency, most accountants back then, and bear in mind, this is a long time ago as well. This is in 2024. Most of them stared at me and had no idea what I was talking about. But then when I went with the accountant that I ended up working with, after hearing what I did, they said, "Amazing, do you guys run Facebook ads or SEO?" And then they said stuff like, "I'm assuming you use Stripe." And this is before I talked about what payment processor I used. And then they went on to talk about the best practices for online service-based businesses. Then of course, I went for that accountant because they understood my business model and they spoke my language. And by the way, that's the exact same experience Michael had. He posted it in our private community for our agency program that in his first month, he managed to sign 5 paying clients out of 8 sales calls he had. In his own words, he says, "My biggest advice would be to choose a niche that you're familiar with and you can speak the language. It helps build trust so well, which leads to the sale." So let's run you through the decision-making process on how to pick the best niche for your agency. Now, you should have a niche chosen that's best set up for your success. The best advice I can leave you with is stick to this one niche for at least 6 months, but also don't marry yourself to one niche, because when you stick to one niche, it's going to be easier to create processes and systems that streamline your whole agency. So whenever you sign a new client, it's just a matter of running them through this plug-and-play system that you've already built. Now listen, it's okay to experiment a bit with different niches at first, but once you find one that works for you, stick to it. So that is how you find the most profitable beginner-friendly niches in 2024. Now at this point, you can either be the one taking action yourself and getting what's yours, or you could be the one sitting back and watching others succeed and wasting your time scrolling on YouTube thinking that you're being productive when no, really, you should just be putting in the work. The choice is yours. Check the description for the links that I mentioned in this video. And as always, I'm watching from afar and I'm rooting for you.